The sound of shattering glass echoed through the penthouse suite of the Alexander Industries Tower. Blake Alexander, 34-year-old tech mogul and Boston's most eligible bachelor, stared in disbelief at the champagne flute fragments scattered across his imported Italian marble floor. She said no. Blake's voice was barely above a whisper, as if speaking the words any louder might make them more real. His assistant, Marcus, shifted uncomfortably by the door. "Yes, sir. Ms. Collins declined your dinner invitation." Her exact words were, "Tell Mr. Alexander I'm not interested in becoming another notch on his designer belt." Blake ran his fingers through his dark, meticulously styled hair. This was unprecedented. Women didn't say no to Blake Alexander. They certainly didn't send back his custom-made invitations delivered with rare blue orchids flown in from Thailand. He owned half of Boston's skyline, for God's sake. "Did you tell her who I am?" Blake demanded, his steel blue eyes narrowing. Marcus adjusted his glasses nervously. She knew exactly who you were, sir. That seemed to be part of the problem." Blake paced the floor, carefully avoiding the glass shards. His reflection bounced off the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the glittering Boston skyline, a kingdom he had built from nothing. A kingdom that apparently held no sway over one Emma Collins, head librarian at the Boston Public Library. "Find out everything about her," Blake ordered, straightening his bespoke suit jacket. "And I mean everything. What she likes, what she hates, her favorite food, books, music." "Sir," Marcus interrupted gently, "maybe the issue is precisely that approach. Your reputation precedes you." Blake stopped pacing. His string of high-profile flings was well documented by the tabloids. The billionaire Casanova, they called him. Last month's charity gala photo of him with twin supermodels still dominated the gossip sites. "I just want dinner with her, Marcus," Blake insisted, though he wasn't entirely sure why this particular rejection stung so much. He had glimpsed Emma only once, during a library fundraiser he'd reluctantly attended. She had been passionately arguing about the importance of physical books in a digital age, completely unaware of who he was, or how much power he wielded in the room. Her complete indifference had been intriguing. Perhaps a less ostentatious approach, Marcus suggested. Blake's phone buzzed. Another crisis at the company needed his attention. Always another crisis. Always another deal. Always another conquest. But for the first time in years, Blake Alexander felt something different stirring. A challenge. "Cancel my meetings tomorrow morning," he said suddenly. "I think it's time I visited the library." What Blake didn't know was that Emma Collins had her own complicated reasons for avoiding men like him, and that his appearance in her carefully ordered world was about to set in motion a chain of events neither of them could have anticipated. As his private elevator descended, Blake smiled to himself. He'd never had to work for a woman's attention before, but then again, he hadn't built a billion-dollar empire by backing down from a challenge. The Boston Public Library's main reading room was bathed in golden morning light as Emma Collins shelved returned books with practiced efficiency. At 32, she found peace in the ordered world of the library that had eluded her in other aspects of life. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in a practical bun, her glasses occasionally sliding down her nose as she worked. "Emma, there's someone asking for you at the reference desk," her colleague Olivia whispered, approaching with wide eyes. "And well, you should just come see." Emma frowned. "I'm almost done here. Trust me," Olivia insisted. "You want to handle this one personally." Sighing, Emma followed Olivia to the front where she stopped dead in her tracks. Standing at the reference desk, dressed in a casual button-down that probably cost more than her monthly rent, was Blake Alexander. In person, he was even more striking than in his magazine covers. Tall with an easy confidence that radiated power. Several patrons were openly staring. "Ms. Collins," he said with a smile that had charmed countless women across continents. "I'm looking for a book recommendation." Emma's expression remained neutral despite her racing pulse. "What sort of books do you enjoy, Mr. Alexander?" "I'm not sure. That's why I need a librarian's expertise." He leaned against the counter. What would you recommend to someone who's used to getting everything he wants? The self-help section is on the second floor, Emma replied coolly. Specifically, books on handling rejection. A woman nearby stifled a laugh. Blake's smile faltered momentarily before returning with renewed interest. Actually, I'm genuinely looking for something to read. His voice softened. Contrary to what the tabloids suggest, I do read books that aren't quarterly reports. Emma studied him, trying to determine if this was another elaborate attempt to add her to his collection of conquests. Follow me, she finally said, leading him toward the fiction section. Why did you turn down my dinner invitation? Blake asked once they were between the shelves, away from curious eyes. Because I'm not interested in being photographed on your arm, dissected by gossip columns, then discarded when someone more exciting comes along, Emma stated matter-of-factly, pulling a book from the shelf. Here, Pride and Prejudice. It might teach you something about first impressions. I've read it, Blake replied, surprising her. Darcy was misunderstood. Darcy had to earn Elizabeth's respect, Emma countered. Is that what I need to do? Earn your respect? Blake's blue eyes held a challenge. Emma pushed her glasses up. Mr. Alexander. Blake. Mr. Alexander, she insisted. I appreciate the theater of the humble billionaire visiting a public library, but we both know tomorrow you'll be back to your real life. You don't know anything about my real life, he said, a hint of genuine frustration in his voice. I know enough, Emma replied, thinking of her sister Katie's heartbreak after being dumped by a man cut from the same cloth as Blake. Now, if there's nothing else, have dinner with me, Blake said, but this time it wasn't a command. No private jets, no expensive wine, no pressure, just dinner. Why? Emma asked, genuinely curious. There are literally models and actresses lining up for your attention. Blake considered his answer carefully. Because when I donated to the library fundraiser last month, you were the only person who didn't care who I was. You argued with me about digital books versus physical ones without once mentioning my net worth. It was refreshing. Emma remembered the conversation but hadn't realized who he was at the time. She'd been rather passionate, perhaps even rude. One dinner, Blake continued, at a restaurant of your choosing. If you still think I'm the shallow playboy from the tabloids afterward, I'll never bother you again. Before Emma could respond, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Katie. Emergency. Pipe burst in my apartment, everything's flooded, need help. I have to go, Emma said urgently, shoving the phone back in her pocket. Family emergency. As she rushed toward the staff room to grab her things, Blake followed. Let me help. I can have a restoration team there in minutes. This isn't your problem, Emma insisted. Consider it my first attempt at earning respect, Blake offered, already pulling out his phone. Emma hesitated, torn between pride and practicality. Her sister's apartment was her whole world, and time was of the essence with water damage. Fine, she conceded reluctantly. But this doesn't mean I'm having dinner with you. Blake's expression was uncharacteristically sincere. Understood. Now, what's the address? The scene at Katie's apartment was worse than Emma had imagined. Water cascaded from the ceiling, the hardwood floors already buckling. Katie stood in the middle of the chaos, frantically trying to save photo albums and books. Emma, thank God. Katie stopped mid-sentence when she noticed Blake Alexander standing behind her sister. Why is Blake Alexander in my flooded apartment? He offered to help, Emma explained awkwardly. Before Katie could respond, a team of professionals in uniform flooded in, not with water, but with industrial equipment. Blake had made one phone call from the car, and suddenly a full restoration crew was efficiently tackling the disaster. This is Jackson, Blake introduced a man who appeared to be the team leader. He'll make sure everything's handled properly. I should be documenting this for insurance, Katie said, looking overwhelmed. Already taken care of, Jackson assured her. We're photographing everything. As the crew worked, Blake rolled up his sleeves, literally, revealing tanned forearms as he moved furniture away from the worst of the flooding. You don't have to do that, Emma said, surprised. I'm not completely useless, Blake replied with a half smile. Contrary to popular belief, I wasn't always rich. Emma raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. It's true, Blake continued, helping her move a bookshelf. I grew up in South Boston. My dad was a mechanic. When our basement flooded every spring, there was no team to call, just mops and buckets. Emma studied him, trying to reconcile this image with the playboy billionaire from the magazines. The articles all say you come from old money. That's the story my PR team prefers, Blake admitted. Sounds better than scholarship kid who got lucky with a tech startup. In the kitchen, Katie was frantically trying to save a stack of papers. Blake noticed Emma's concerned expression. What are those? He asked quietly. Her manuscript, Emma explained. She's a writer. Been working on that novel for 2 years. Blake immediately went to help, carefully separating the damp pages. We need a hairdryer and some paper towels, he said with surprising expertise. If we act fast, we might be able to save most of it. For the next hour, Emma watched in amazement as Blake Alexander, who reportedly once bought a yacht on a whim, painstakingly dried each page of her sister's manuscript. There was something unexpectedly gentle in the way his fingers handled the fragile pages. Why are you really doing this? Emma finally asked when they had a moment alone. Blake considered the question. Maybe I'm trying to prove you wrong about me. Or maybe this is just an elaborate strategy to get me to have dinner with you, Emma countered, though with less conviction than before. Blake's phone rang, the third time in 20 minutes. He glanced at it, then silenced it again. You need to get that? Emma asked. Billion-dollar empires don't run themselves. They can manage without me for one afternoon, Blake replied, though Emma noticed the tension in his jaw. Katie approached them, looking shell-shocked but grateful. The crew says they've stopped the water and can start drying everything out, but... She trailed off, looking around her saturated apartment. You'll need somewhere to stay. Emma finished, her thought. You can stay with me. Actually, Blake interjected, I own a building 2 blocks from here with a fully furnished guest apartment. It's empty right now. You're welcome to use it until your place is fixed. Katie's eyes widened. I couldn't possibly... It's just sitting there, Blake insisted. Consider it a loan, not charity. Later, after Katie was settled in the immaculate apartment, which Emma suspected was worth more than most people's primary residences, Blake walked Emma to her car. Thank you, Emma said sincerely, for helping my sister. Does this mean I've earned enough respect for that dinner? Blake asked, his usual confidence tempered with what seemed like genuine uncertainty. Emma hesitated. The man who had spent the afternoon saving her sister's manuscript didn't align with the tabloid caricature she'd judged so harshly. One dinner, she conceded. No private dining rooms, no celebrity chef treatment. Deal, Blake agreed quickly. Tomorrow night? I know a place that makes incredible ramen, very public, very casual. Ramen? Emma couldn't hide her surprise. Best comfort food in Boston? Blake said with unexpected enthusiasm. Unless you'd prefer somewhere else? Emma shook her head, intrigued despite herself. Ramen is fine. As they parted ways, Emma realized with alarm that she was actually looking forward to their date. No, she corrected herself firmly. Not a date. A dinner. There was a difference. Blake watched her drive away, realizing he'd just rescheduled a crucial investor meeting for a bowl of noodles with a librarian. Marcus would think he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. The ramen shop was tucked away in a narrow alley off the main street, its weathered wooden sign barely visible beneath the soft glow of paper lanterns. Emma arrived 15 minutes early, a habit from childhood she'd never shaken, and found herself scanning the bustling sidewalk for any sign of Blake. She smoothed down her emerald-wrapped dress, chosen after an embarrassingly long deliberation, for someone who'd insisted this wasn't a real date. When Blake appeared, he was almost unrecognizable. Gone was the power suit and slicked-back hair. Instead, he wore dark jeans, a simple navy Henley that accentuated his broad shoulders, and glasses, actual prescription glasses, that lent him an intellectual air Emma hadn't expected. His usual bodyguard and entourage were conspicuously absent. "You look surprised," Blake said, a hint of vulnerability in his smile as he approached. "Disappointed?" "Just processing," Emma admitted, taking in this transformed version of Boston's most notorious playboy. "I didn't recognize you without your billionaire costume." "That's the idea." Blake's eyes lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary. "You look beautiful, by the way. Green suits you." A warmth crept up Emma's neck that had nothing to do with the steam rising from the ramen shop's open kitchen. She deflected with practiced ease. "How did you even find this place? It's not exactly on the Billionaire's Guide to Boston." "My college roommate's family owned it," Blake explained as they entered. "I used to wash dishes here when I was broke and trying to launch my first startup." "Hero," he called out to an older Japanese man behind the counter who broke into a wide grin at the sight of him. "Blake-kun, too long." Hero abandoned his post to embrace Blake with genuine affection. "And with a real date, not those plastic women. From TV." Emma couldn't help but laugh at Blake's embarrassed expression. This wasn't the carefully orchestrated charm she'd expected, but something far more appealing: authenticity. They were led to a corner table, intimate without being secluded. The restaurant was packed with an eclectic mix of students, local families, and workers from nearby businesses. Not a single person seemed to recognize the tech magnate in their midst. "You come here often?" Emma asked, genuinely curious. "When I need to remember who I really am," Blake replied, then looked immediately self-conscious. "That sounded less cliché in my head." "No, I get it." Emma surprised herself with the admission. "Sometimes I hide in the rare manuscripts room at the library when everything gets too loud. Just me and 500-year-old books that have survived wars, plagues, and time itself. Makes my problems seem smaller." The conversation flowed with unexpected ease as they ordered. Blake in fluent Japanese that made Emma raise her eyebrows appreciatively. They shared steaming bowls of tonkotsu ramen, the rich broth swimming with tender slices of chashu pork, perfectly jammy eggs, and springy noodles that demanded their full attention. "So," Blake said, skillfully maneuvering his chopsticks, "what made you become a librarian? Passion for literature or love of silence?" "Both," Emma confessed. "But mostly I believe stories save lives, mine included." She hesitated, then decided to offer a piece of herself. "My mom died when I was 12. Dad worked double shifts to keep us afloat. Books became my escape, my comfort, my education on how to be human when everything hurt too much." Blake's expression softened. "I'm sorry about your mom. Long time ago," Emma said, though the gentle understanding in his eyes made her throat tighten unexpectedly. "What about you? How does a mechanic's son become a tech billionaire before 30? "Sheer terror of ending up back where I started," Blake admitted with startling honesty. "And insomnia. Turns out you can build an empire when you never sleep." "That's not sustainable," Emma observed. "Says who?" Blake challenged with a half-smile. "The dark circles under your eyes," Emma replied boldly, "and the fact that you've checked your phone 17 times in 45 minutes. Blake looked genuinely startled, then chagrined. He pulled out his phone and switched it off completely, a gesture that, for someone like him, felt oddly intimate. "Tell me about your sister," he said, changing the subject. "The writer." Emma's face lit. "But Katie's brilliant. Her novel's about a woman who discovers she can see how much time people have left to live. It explores grief, mortality, the value of moments when you know they're finite." She paused. "She's been rejected by 32 publishers. But she keeps writing. Every day. Sometimes I think she believes in her stories more than she believes in herself." Something shifted in Blake's expression. "I'd like to read it someday." "Why?" Emma challenged. "So you can play literary agent now?" "No," Blake replied seriously. "Because it matters to you." The simple truth of his words hung between them, unexpectedly weighty. Emma searched his face for any sign of the practiced charm she'd been guarding against, but found only earnest attention. Their conversation meandered through books they loved, places they'd traveled, Blake everywhere for business, Emma nowhere but everywhere through pages, and childhood memories both sweet and painful. Time slipped away unnoticed until Hero began to dim the lights, a gentle hint they were closing. "I can't believe it's almost midnight," Emma said, startled. "Shall I walk you home?" Blake offered, then quickly added, "Just to your door. No expectations." The night air was crisp as they strolled through Boston's historic streets, their shoulders occasionally brushing. Emma's apartment was only 15 minutes away, but they took their time, neither quite ready for the evening to end. "You haven't asked about my business once," Blake observed. "Should I have?" Emma replied. "Everyone does. It's usually all they want to talk about." "I'm more interested in the person than the portfolio," Emma said simply. They reached her brownstone apartment building, pausing at the bottom of the steps. The moment stretched between them, electric with possibility. "I had a nice time," Emma admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. "Nice enough to do it again?" Blake asked, his usual confidence replaced by something more tentative. Before Emma could answer, her phone rang. She glanced at it, frowning. "It's Katie. She never calls this late." The moment she answered, Katie's panicked voice came through. "Emma, turn on the news. Channel 7. Blake watched Emma's expression transform from confusion to horror as she fumbled with her keys, rushing inside. He followed, concern overriding propriety, as Emma turned on her small television. There on the screen was Blake's face next to hers, captured leaving the ramen shop. The headline scrolled beneath, "Billionaire Blake Alexander's New Conquest Mystery Woman Unveiled." Emma stared at the television in horror. The reporter's voice droned on about Blake's notorious dating history and speculated about his latest fling with the unassuming librarian. They had footage of them walking, laughing, and even a moment when Blake had gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture that had seemed private and tender in the moment, now dissected for entertainment. "I have to go," Blake said, immediately pulling out his phone. "I'll fix this." "Fix this?" Emma echoed, her voice hollow. "How exactly do you fix a national news story?" "I have a PR team, Emma. This isn't the first time." "That's exactly the problem," Emma cut him off, wrapping her arms around herself. "This isn't the first time for you. This is your world. But it's not mine." She glanced back at the screen where they were now showing photos of his previous relationships, all stunning models and actresses. "I don't belong in that lineup." Blake's expression turned serious. "That's not what this is." "Isn't it?" Emma challenged, a mixture of embarrassment and anger rising within her. "One dinner, and I'm already the punchline to Boston's favorite soap opera." "Emma, please." Her phone began buzzing incessantly, messages from co-workers, distant friends, even her father who rarely texted. A particularly awful thought struck her. "Oh God, the library board, if they see this..." "They can't fire you for having dinner with someone," Blake argued. "You don't understand," Emma's voice cracked. "I'm up for the director position. The why? Board votes next week. They're all about maintaining the library's dignified image." She scrolled through her notifications with growing dread. "And now I'm Billionaire's bookish booty call on TMZ." Blake ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Let me make some calls. I can have this contained by morning." "Contained?" Emma's laugh was bitter. "My life isn't one of your PR problems to manage, Blake. This is exactly why I said no in the first place." The hurt in his eyes was unmistakable, but Emma was too overwhelmed to care. Her carefully constructed world was unraveling on primetime television. "I think you should go," she said quietly. "Emma, please," she insisted, opening her door. "I need space to figure out how to deal with this." Reluctantly, Blake moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, tonight was real. For me. More real than anything has been in a long time." After he left, Emma sank onto her couch, phone still buzzing relentlessly. She turned it off completely but couldn't escape the thoughts racing through her mind. Tonight had been perfect. Until reality intruded. Blake's reality. A world where privacy was a luxury he hadn't enjoyed in years. The next morning brought no relief. Emma trudged to work, hood pulled up, sunglasses on despite the cloudy day. She'd barely reached her office when Olivia burst in, tablet in hand. "Have you seen the latest?" Olivia asked breathlessly. "Blake Alexander just gave an impromptu press conference." Emma's stomach dropped. "What?" On the tablet screen, Blake stood outside his corporate headquarters, looking impeccably dressed, yet somehow exhausted. His voice was firm as he addressed the gathered reporters. "My personal life is not public entertainment," he stated. "The woman you've been speculating about is a private citizen who deserves respect. Our relationship is exactly no one's business but our own, and I expect all coverage to cease immediately." A reporter shouted, "Are you confirming you're dating the librarian?" Blake's jaw tightened. "I'm confirming that I value my privacy, and more importantly, hers. This ends now." The video cut to a news anchor. In an unprecedented move, Alexander Industries has threatened legal action against any outlet continuing to publish stories about Blake Alexander's personal relationships, citing privacy laws. Tech industry insiders are speculating this may impact Alexander's upcoming merger talks with. Emma switched off the tablet, her mind reeling. Had Blake just put his business interests at risk for her privacy? Olivia was practically vibrating with excitement. "So it's true? You and Blake Alexander?" "It was one dinner," Emma muttered, slumping into her chair. "One dinner that has the most eligible bachelor in Boston threatening media outlets," Olivia pointed out. "That's not nothing." Before Emma could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Collins, this is Marcus, Mr. Alexander's assistant. He would like to speak with you if you're willing. Please call at your convenience." Attached was a private number. Emma stared at the message, conflicted. Part of her wanted to delete it and pretend the whole whirlwind had never happened. But another part couldn't forget the genuine connection they'd shared over steaming bowls of ramen, or how he'd dried her sister's manuscript page by page. Her office phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Mrs. Harrington, head of the library board. "Emma, dear." The older woman's voice crackled through the line. "The board would like to see you. Now, if possible." Heart sinking, Emma made her way to the boardroom. This was it. The end of her professional aspirations, all because of one dinner. To her surprise, the entire board was present, faces unreadable. Mrs. Harrington gestured for her to sit. "Emma, we've received a rather unusual call this morning," Mrs. Harrington began. "From the mayor's office." Emma blinked. "The mayor?" "Yes. It seems Blake Alexander has offered to triple the library's annual funding, establish a new wing for rare manuscripts, and create a literacy foundation in partnership with us." Mrs. Harrington leaned forward. "Contingent on one condition." "What condition?" Emma asked, though she already suspected. "That we judge the director candidate on her merits alone, without regard to her personal associations." Emma felt a flush of anger. Of course, Blake was trying to buy her way out of trouble, just throwing money at the problem like he did with everything else. "I see," Emma said stiffly. "And what did the board say?" "We said Mr. Alexander's generous offer was appreciated but unnecessary," Mrs. Harrington stated firmly. "We've always intended to judge you on your merits alone, my dear. Though the additional funding is certainly welcome, it doesn't influence our decision. And," added Mr. Peterson, the youngest board member, "we agreed his condition was reasonable. Your private life is your own business." Relief washed over Emma, quickly followed by confusion. Blake had offered the library millions, not to secure her job, but simply to ensure she was judged fairly. As she left the meeting, Emma's phone buzzed again with another text from Marcus. "Mr. Alexander wanted me to clarify he expects nothing in return for his library donation. It was something he'd been considering since the fundraiser last month. Your career and reputation should never suffer because of your association with him." Emma stopped in the middle of the hallway, torn between gratitude and frustration. Blake. Was making grand gestures, throwing his influence around, but was it to help her? Or to ease his own conscience? And why did part of her wish he would just show up himself instead of sending texts through his assistant? As if in answer to her unspoken question, the library's front doors opened, and Blake Alexander walked in, looking decidedly un-billionaire-like, in jeans and a worn MIT sweatshirt. He carried 2 cups of coffee and wore an expression of uncertainty Emma had never seen in any of his magazine covers. Their eyes met across the lobby, and everything else seemed to fade away. The library atrium fell silent as Blake approached Emma, the morning sunlight streaming through the skylights casting a spotlight on their unexpected reunion. Patrons and staff alike tried to pretend they weren't watching Boston's most famous billionaire nervously holding 2 coffee cups. "You're all over the news," Emma said quietly when he reached her. "Not the first time," Blake replied with a wry smile, offering her one of the coffees. "Oat milk latte with cinnamon. Your sister mentioned it was your favorite." Emma accepted the cup, surprised he'd remembered such a detail. "You talked to Katie?" "She called me, actually. Said you were too stubborn to do it yourself." His blue eyes searched hers. "Can we talk? Somewhere private?" Emma led him to the rare manuscripts room, her sanctuary. The room smelled of old paper and wood polish, the kind of scent that money couldn't buy. Blake looked around with genuine appreciation at the climate-controlled displays of literary treasures. "I'm sorry," they both said simultaneously, then laughed, breaking the tension. "You go first," Emma offered. Blake set his coffee down on a reading table. "I'm sorry your privacy was invaded because of me. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from that. But I'm not sorry about our dinner or getting to know you." Emma sighed, running her finger along the edge of an ancient manuscript case. "I'm sorry I panicked. It's just, I've spent my whole life being invisible, Blake. Comfortable, in the background. Then suddenly I'm on national TV being dissected by strangers. I understand," Blake said softly. "More than you know." "Do you?" Emma challenged. "Your life has been public for years." "And I hate every second of it," Blake admitted, surprising her. "The real me, the one who reads classics, who misses working with his hands, who just wanted to build something useful, got buried under billionaire Blake years ago." He moved closer, not touching her but close enough that Emma could see the genuine emotion in his eyes. "Then I met a woman who argued with me about books, who didn't care about my bank account, who called me on my bullshit. And for the first time in years I felt like myself again." Emma's resolve weakened. "Blake, I canceled the merger," he interjected. Emma blinked, confused. "What merger?" "With Technovate, the deal I've been working on for 2 years." Blake ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "My board thinks I've lost my mind." "Why would you do that?" "Because they were demanding guarantees about my public image. Stable, predictable, marketable." His voice was bitter. "They had concerns about me dating a normal person instead of the approved celebrity types, said it made me look unsophisticated." Emma's eyes widened. "You canceled a billion-dollar deal because of me?" "No," Blake corrected firmly. "I canceled it because of me. Because I'm tired of letting other people dictate who I can be." He took a deep breath. "But I'd be lying if I said you weren't part of it. You reminded me there's more to life than acquisitions and stock prices." A silence fell between them, heavy with possibility. "The board offered me the director position," Emma said finally. Blake's face lit up. "Emma, that's wonderful." "I haven't accepted yet," she continued. "I needed to talk to you first." "To me? Why?" Emma set her coffee down and met his gaze squarely. "Because if I take it, I need to know if this," she gestured between them, "is something real. Something worth the risk." Blake's expression softened. "Ask me." "Ask you what?" "Whatever you need to know to make your decision." Emma took a deep breath. "If we tried this, really tried, what happens when the novelty wears off? When I'm just Emma the librarian and the challenge is gone?" "The challenge was never the point," Blake said simply. The connection was. And the media circus? Your shareholders' opinions? Let me worry about them. He moved closer. My question is, are you willing to give this a chance? Not the billionaire and the librarian, just Blake and Emma, two people who connected over ramen and books. Emma looked at him, really looked at him, and saw beyond the public persona to the man who had saved her sister's manuscript, who had threatened media outlets to protect her privacy, who stood before her now, vulnerable and hopeful. It won't be easy, she warned. Nothing worth having ever is, Blake replied with a smile. And I won't change who I am, Emma added firmly. No designer makeovers or charity galas every weekend. I wouldn't want you to change, Blake assured her. Your authenticity is what drew me to you in the first place. Emma felt the last of her resistance crumbling. One condition. Name it. We take it slow. Really slow. Blake's smile widened. Does that mean I get a second date? It means, Emma said, stepping closer until they were inches apart, that I'm willing to see where this goes, day by day. Blake reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, just as he had the night before. Only this time, there were no cameras, no audience, just them. I can work with that, he murmured. Their first kiss was nothing like Emma had imagined, not the calculated move of a practiced playboy, but something tentative and sweet, full of promise rather than demand. When they broke apart, both were smiling. So, Blake asked, his forehead resting against hers, what should we do for our second date? Emma laughed. Something normal people do. Mini golf, maybe? I'm terrible at mini golf, Blake confessed. Even better, Emma teased. I'll finally find something you're not good at. I can think of worse ways to spend an evening than being humiliated at mini golf by the new library director, Blake said, his eyes sparkling. Their moment was interrupted by Blake's phone buzzing, his board no doubt still in crisis mode over his canceled merger. At the same time, Emma noticed Mrs. Harrington hovering near the door, clearly waiting to speak with her. Real-life calls. Emma sighed. Let it wait another minute, Blake said, pulling her close again. 6 months later, the tabloids still occasionally featured photos of Boston's most unlikely power couple, the billionaire and the librarian. They captured Blake carrying stacks of books at library fundraisers, Emma reluctantly attending tech conferences, albeit in her own comfortable style, and the two of them regularly eating at a certain hidden ramen shop. What the cameras missed were the quiet moments, Blake reading manuscripts for Katie, who was now working with a publisher, Emma challenging Blake's workaholic tendencies and bringing balance to his life, their Sunday morning ritual of coffee and crosswords in her small apartment, which he preferred to his penthouse. In the end, Emma Collins, who had once been certain that men like Blake Alexander were nothing but trouble, found herself happily proven wrong. And Blake, who had spent years surrounding himself with people who wanted something from him, discovered that what he'd really been searching for was someone who simply wanted him, just him, not the empire he'd built. And that, it turned out, was worth all the risk in the world. The screeching of tires against wet pavement echoed through Manhattan's Upper East Side as Maxwell Blackwood slammed on the brakes of his matte black Lamborghini. A taxi had cut him off, causing him to nearly hydroplane across 3 lanes. Maxwell's knuckles turned white against the steering wheel as his Patek Philippe watch glinted in the morning light. Today was not the day for this. The merger documents needed his signature by noon, and his father had scheduled another dinner with the Astors to discuss the arrangement. $3 billion in assets, and I still have to put up with this prehistoric tradition, Maxwell muttered, running his fingers through his perfectly styled dark hair. Maxwell Blackwood, 32, named one of New York's most eligible bachelors 4 years running despite his notorious reputation, was being forced into an arranged marriage with Sophia Astor, heiress to the Astor Hotel empire. A business consolidation, disguised as matrimony. As the rain intensified, Maxwell spotted the small bookshop on the corner, Foxglove Books. He'd driven past it hundreds of times but never entered. Today, seeking refuge from both the storm and his thoughts, he parked illegally and dashed inside. The shop was warm, filled with the comforting scent of old pages and cinnamon. Unlike the cold, calculated world of high finance he dominated, this place felt authentic. Maxwell loosened his Italian silk tie, suddenly aware of how out of place. His $12,000 suit looked amidst the worn leather chairs and overstuffed bookshelves. "Can I help you find something?" The voice was melodic, confident but gentle. Maxwell turned to find himself face to face with a woman so unlike those in his social circle that he momentarily forgot to respond. Auburn hair piled messily atop him, her head, wire-rimmed glasses perched on a freckled nose, and green eyes that showed not a hint of recognition or intimidation. Her name tag read, Emma. No, just browsing," he replied, uncharacteristically tongue-tied. Emma Hayes nodded politely but looked unimpressed. "Well, new arrivals are on the table by the window. Classics are to your left. Coffee's free for customers." With that, she returned to a stack of books she was cataloging, leaving Maxwell standing there feeling oddly dismissed. Nobody dismissed Maxwell Blackwood, ever. "Actually," he said, approaching her desk with his usual swagger returning, "I'm looking for something rare." Emma looked up, one eyebrow raised. "Such as?" "First edition Fitzgerald, perhaps? Money's no object." Emma's laugh was genuine and caught him off guard. "Of course it isn't," she said, gesturing to his custom suit. "But I'm afraid we don't keep our first editions on the sales floor, Mr. Blackwood. Maxwell Blackwood," he replied, waiting for the recognition to dawn. It didn't. "Well, Mr. Blackwood, those books are by appointment only. Our curator handles the rare books collection. I'm just the manager." Just the manager. There was nothing just about her. For a man accustomed to women falling over themselves in his presence, Emma's casual indifference was both infuriating and intoxicating. Before he could respond, his phone rang. His father. Maxwell declined the call and instead found himself saying, "Then I'd like to make an appointment." Emma handed him a business card. "Call this number tomorrow. Claire handles the appointments." "Not you?" "Not me," she confirmed, returning to her work. As Maxwell left the shop, merger forgotten, rain soaking through his jacket, he glanced back through the window. Emma was helping an elderly customer, laughing at something the woman said. For the first time in years, Maxwell felt like he was standing outside looking in at something genuine. He slid back into his Lamborghini, his mind already plotting a return to Foxglove Books. The merger could wait. The Astors could wait. Maxwell Blackwood had just found something far more interesting than business deals and arranged marriages, and he always got what he wanted. The following morning, Maxwell arrived at his penthouse office overlooking Central Park, his mind still lingering on the auburn-haired bookshop manager. His assistant, Tyler, was waiting with his usual espresso and a stack of urgent contracts. "Your father called 3 times, Tyler said, trailing behind Maxwell into his minimalist office. "And Ms. Astor's assistant wants to confirm dinner tonight at Le Bernardin." Maxwell loosened his tie. "Cancel dinner. Tell them something came up." Tyler's eyebrows shot up. "Cancel on the Astors. Your father will... My father will survive." Maxwell interrupted, pulling out the small business card from his jacket pocket. "And call this number. I want an appointment at Foxglove Books, their rare books collection. Today." 2 hours later, Maxwell strode into the bookshop, this time in a deliberately casual cashmere sweater that still cost more than most people's monthly rent. The bell above the door jingled cheerfully and Maxwell scanned the space for Emma. Instead, he was greeted by a petite woman with silver hair. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm Claire Winters, rare books curator. Your assistant was quite persuasive about fitting you in today." Maxwell flashed his practiced smile. "I appreciate it. Is Emma working today?" Claire's eyes twinkled knowingly. "Ms. Hayes is in the back. She'll be out shortly." She gestured toward a door marked, "Staff Only." "Shall we begin with the Fitzgeralds you inquired about?" Before Maxwell could respond, Emma emerged carrying a stack of books that nearly obscured her face. Today she wore a simple blue dress that complemented her eyes, her hair in a loose braid down her back. Maxwell instinctively moved to help, taking half the stack from her arms. "Oh, thank you," she said before realizing who stood before her. Her smile faltered slightly. "Mr. Blackwood, you're back." "Maxwell," he corrected, holding the books with ease. "And yes, I had some time between meetings." Emma rolled her eyes. "Of course you did. Claire, are you showing him the first editions?" "I was about to," Claire replied, noticing the tension between them with unconcealed amusement. "I can take over," Emma offered unexpectedly. "You should rest your knee, doctor's orders." Claire looked between the two of them and smiled. How thoughtful. The Fitzgeralds are already on the table in the reading room. Left alone with Emma, Maxwell followed her to a small, cozy room lined with glass-enclosed bookshelves. A single table sat in the center with white gloves and a first edition of The Great Gatsby waiting. "So," Emma began professionally, "what brings a man like you to collect first editions? Investment opportunity? Status symbol?" Maxwell set down the books he'd carried. "Do you always judge your customers so quickly?" "Only the ones who arrive in Lamborghinis and name-drop their wealth within the first minute of conversation," she replied. But her eyes held a glimmer of humor. For once, Maxwell felt seen through his facade. "Fair enough. My grandfather collected books. Real books, not just status symbols. He left me his collection when he died." Emma's expression softened at the unexpected vulnerability. "And what was his favorite?" "Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. He said it reminded him that true strength isn't about conquering but enduring." Emma handed him the white gloves. "Put these on, and tell me more about this grandfather who sounds nothing like the Maxwell Blackwood I've read about in the business pages." Maxwell paused, gloves halfway on. "You Googled me?" "After you left yesterday, hard to miss New York's most ruthless bachelor billionaire." She mimicked quotation marks with her fingers. Maxwell laughed genuinely. "Don't believe everything you read." "I generally don't," she replied, carefully opening the Fitzgerald first edition. "That's why I read the actual court documents about how you dismantled that family-owned publishing house last year." Maxwell's smile faded. He hadn't expected to be called out so directly, especially not by someone whose eyes could switch from warm to challenging in an instant. Before he could defend himself, his phone rang again. His father. Again. "Aren't you going to get that?" Emma asked. Maxwell silenced the phone. "No. I'd rather hear more about why you think I'm the villain in this story." Emma's laugh was unexpected and bright. "Oh, I don't think you're the villain, Mr. Blackwood. Maxwell." "Maxwell," she conceded. "I think you're the protagonist who doesn't realize he's in the wrong story." Their eyes locked, the rare book momentarily forgotten. For the first time in years, Maxwell felt the thrill of meeting someone who wouldn't be easily impressed or acquired. Someone who saw through the Blackwood armor to something he himself had almost forgotten existed. The moment was shattered by Maxwell's assistant calling. This time he answered. "What is it, Tyler?" "The Astors are where?" "Stall them. I'll be there in 20. He hung up, regret evident on his face. "I have to go. Family business." Emma nodded, professional once more. "Of course. The appointment fee is $250 for the hour, even if you don't use it all." "Worth every penny," Maxwell replied, removing the gloves. "Same time tomorrow?" "We're booked tomorrow." "The day after?" Emma hesitated, then nodded. "Fine. But next time, maybe come with actual questions about the books." As Maxwell left, Claire approached Emma with a knowing smile. "He's not just here for the Fitzgeralds, is he?" Emma watched Maxwell's retreating figure through the window. "No. But whatever he is here for, it's not going to end well. Men like that don't change their stories." Yet as she returned to cataloging, Emma couldn't help but wonder about the glimpse of genuine passion she'd seen when Maxwell spoke about his grandfather. Perhaps there were chapters to Maxwell Blackwood that hadn't made the tabloids after all. You canceled dinner with the Astors to visit a bookshop? Harrison Blackwood's voice boomed across the private dining room of his exclusive club. Have you lost your mind, Maxwell? Maxwell maintained his composure, swirling the 30-year-old scotch in his glass. I had a prior engagement. With books? Harrison scoffed. The merger with Astor Hotels depends on this union. Do you understand what's at stake? Perfectly, Maxwell replied coolly. What I don't understand is why, in 2025, we're still arranging marriages like medieval royalty. Harrison leaned forward, lowering his voice. The Astors are selling to someone. If not to us, then to Zhang International. We lose the Asian market instantly. Then buy them out the normal way. They won't sell without the marriage guarantee. It's how they ensure family legacy. Harrison's expression softened marginally. Maxwell, I didn't raise you to be weak. One dinner, one marriage, for the future of Blackwood Industries. Maxwell thought of Emma's words, the protagonist who doesn't realize he's in the wrong story. For the first time, he wondered if she was right. 2 days later, Maxwell returned to Foxglove Books, this time carrying a worn copy of The Old Man in the Sea. The shop was busy with afternoon customers. Emma moved efficiently between shelves, helping an elderly man find a mystery novel, then directing a young couple to the poetry section. She wore jeans and a forest green sweater that made her eyes even more striking. When she spotted Maxwell, she checked her watch. You're early. I know, he admitted. I wanted to see how this place actually runs. It's different. Emma raised an eyebrow. Different from dismantling family businesses in boardrooms. Touché. Maxwell held out the Hemingway. My grandfather's copy, I thought you might want to see it. Surprise flickered across Emma's face as she gently took the book. She opened it carefully, finding annotations in the margins, a pressed flower between pages, a life contained in the notes. This is personal, she said quietly. Why show me? Maxwell hesitated. To prove I'm not just the villain from the business pages. A genuine smile spread across Emma's face. Well, it's a start. They moved to the rare books room, where Emma had prepared several Hemingway first editions alongside the Fitzgeralds. As Maxwell examined them, their conversation flowed naturally from literature to art to travel. You've really never been to Paris? Maxwell asked incredulously. Emma shelved a book. Some of us don't have private jets, Maxwell. You should see it. The small bookshops along the Seine. You'd love Shakespeare and Company. Someday, Emma replied with a wistful smile. After I finish my PhD in literature. You're working on a doctorate? Nights and weekends, 4 years in. Just need to finish my dissertation on forgotten female modernist writers. Maxwell watched her speak passionately about her research, her hands animated, eyes bright. Something shifted in his chest. Admiration, not just attraction. Have dinner with me, he said suddenly. Emma's expression closed off. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because men like you don't date women like me, Maxwell. We both know this isn't real life. What if I want it to be? Emma studied him carefully. Then prove it. Come to our reading group tomorrow night. No designer clothes, no name dropping. Just you and some actual book lovers discussing Virginia Woolf. Maxwell hesitated only briefly. Deal? The reading group was held in the bookstore after hours. Mismatched chairs arranged in a circle, wine in plastic cups. Passionate readers from all walks of life. Maxwell arrived in jeans and a simple button-down, carrying his well-read copy of To the Lighthouse. Emma's surprise at seeing him quickly turned to amusement as he struggled to keep up with the heated literary debates. But when he finally spoke about the lighthouse as a symbol of unattainable perfection, the group fell silent considering his perspective. Afterward, as they closed up the shop, Emma approached him. You actually read it. Cover to cover, Maxwell confirmed. Twice, actually. Why? Because you challenged me. And because... He stepped closer. I wanted to understand what matters to you. the air between them charged with tension. Emma's phone chimed with a text, breaking the moment. "It's my roommate," she said, checking the message. "Water pipe broke in our apartment, everything's flooded." "Let me help," Maxwell offered immediately. Emma shook her head. "This isn't a problem you can throw money at." "No," Maxwell agreed. "But I can throw time at it, and maybe some actual plumbing skills you don't know I have." Emma looked skeptical. "You know plumbing?" "My grandfather believed every man should know how to work with his hands." "Let me help, Emma. As a friend." The word friend hung between them, both knowing it wasn't quite right, but neither ready to name what was growing instead. The apartment was indeed a disaster. Water soaking the hardwood floors, books hastily piled on tables. Emma's roommate, Zoe, a surgical resident, was attempting to contain the leak with pots and pans. "You must be the billionaire," Zoe said, bluntly when Maxwell walked in. "Tonight I'm just the plumber," Maxwell replied, rolling up his sleeves. For 3 hours, Maxwell worked alongside them, finding the damaged pipe, making a temporary fix, helping move furniture, salvaging Emma's book collection. His hands blistered, his clothes soaked, but something about the simple physical work felt liberating. As they finally collapsed on the one dry couch, drinking beer and eating pizza, Maxwell realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so normal, so present. Emma watched him curiously. "You're full of surprises, Blackwood." "Good ones, I hope." Their eyes met, a moment of perfect understanding passing between them. Then Maxwell's phone rang, Sophia Astor's name flashing on the screen. Reality crashed back. Maxwell declined the call, but the damage was done. Emma had seen the name. "Sophia Astor?" she asked quietly. "As in Astor Hotels?" Maxwell's silence was answer enough. "Let me guess," Emma continued, her voice growing distant. "Arranged merger disguised as marriage?" Maxwell reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "It's complicated." "No," Emma said firmly. "It's actually very simple. You're engaged, or as good as. And I'm the foolish distraction." "You're not a distraction, Emma." "Then what am I, Maxwell? Because from where I'm standing, I'm just another acquisition that caught your eye. A novelty. The quaint bookshop manager who doesn't fall at your feet." Maxwell stood frustrated. "That's not fair." "Neither is letting me believe you're available when you're not," Emma replied, her voice breaking slightly. "I think you should go." As Maxwell left the apartment, he felt the weight of two worlds colliding, the life he was expected to lead and the one he was discovering he wanted. For a man accustomed to getting everything he desired, Maxwell Blackwood was suddenly faced with an impossible choice. 3 days passed without Maxwell returning to Foxglove Books. 3 days of Emma jumping whenever the bell above the door chimed, only to feel both relief and disappointment when it wasn't him. 3 days of telling herself it was better this way. "You're checking your phone again," Claire observed as they sorted new arrivals. "I'm not," Emma protested, pocketing her device. "He's engaged, Emma, to Sophia Astor. It's been in the business section all week." Emma froze. "What?" Claire handed her the tablet open to the New York Times business page. Blackwood Astor merger solidified, wedding set for June. The photo showed Maxwell beside a stunning blonde woman, both smiling coolly at the camera, looking every inch the perfect power couple. "I knew," Emma said quietly. "I just didn't know it was official." Claire squeezed her shoulder. "Men like that don't change their stories, remember?" Emma nodded, returning to her work with determined focus. She had a dissertation to finish, a bookshop to manage, a life that had been perfectly fine before Maxwell Blackwood walked through her door. "You look miserable," Harrison Blackwood remarked as Maxwell stared out the penthouse window. "I'm fine," Maxwell replied automatically. "The announcement has been made. The contracts are being finalized." Harrison studied his son. "This is what we've worked for." Maxwell turned. "What you've worked for? Not me." "Don't be dramatic. The Astor girl is beautiful, connected, appropriate. Your mother approves. I don't love her. Harrison laughed, sharply. Love? This is business, Maxwell. Maybe that's the problem, Maxwell said quietly. My whole life has been business. Harrison's expression hardened. We had an agreement. No, you had expectations. I never agreed to any of this. Maxwell straightened his shoulders. I'm not marrying Sophia. You'll destroy everything we've built. Then I'll rebuild it. Differently. Better. Maxwell headed for the door. Where are you going? Harrison demanded. Maxwell paused. To fix the story I'm in. Emma was locking up foxglove books when a familiar Lamborghini screeched to a halt outside. Her heart raced as Maxwell emerged, his usual polished appearance replaced by someone who looked like he hadn't slept in days. We're closed, she called through the glass. I know, Maxwell replied. I need 5 minutes. Congratulations on your engagement, Emma said flatly, refusing to unlock the door. I'm not engaged. Emma pointed to her phone. The New York Times disagrees. The Times is wrong, Maxwell insisted. I called it off. This gave Emma pause. She unlocked the door but remained in the doorway. Why would you do that? It was the perfect business arrangement. Because it was the wrong story. Maxwell stepped closer. You were right, Emma. I was the protagonist in the wrong story. A story about acquisitions and mergers and hollow achievements. And what story are you in now? Emma asked, her voice wavering slightly. I don't know yet, Maxwell admitted, but I know it has to include you. Emma shook her head. Maxwell, you can't just walk away from your life. I'm not walking away from anything. I'm walking toward something. He took her hand. I told my father I'm still taking over the company, but on my terms. No arranged marriages. No hostile takeovers of family businesses. He agreed to that? Eventually. After I reminded him who controls the majority shares now. Maxwell smiled ruefully. And after I pointed out that his own marriage was a love match, not a business merger, Emma finally allowed herself to really look at him. And what about Sophia? Relieved, actually. Turns out she's been dating her bodyguard for years. Maxwell laughed. We're restructuring as a straightforward business partnership instead. Emma felt the wall she'd built crumbling. This is still crazy, we barely know each other. I know that you're brilliant and challenging and passionate about literature. I know that you see through facades and demand authenticity. I know that when you talk about books, your eyes light up like you're sharing secrets of the universe. Maxwell paused, vulnerability written across his face. And I know that I haven't felt truly alive in years until I walked into this bookshop. Emma's resolve weakened further. What exactly are you proposing here, Blackwood? A new chapter, he said simply. Starting with dinner, a real date. No pretenses, no business angles. Just two people seeing where this story goes. And if it doesn't work out? Then we tried, but Emma. Maxwell stepped closer. What if it does? The space between them hummed with possibility. Emma thought of all the reasons to say no, all the ways they were different, all the potential heartbreak. Then she thought of the annotations in his grandfather's book, the way he'd rolled up his sleeves to fix her apartment, the passionate insights about Virginia Woolf that had surprised everyone. One condition, she said finally. Name it. You fund a scholarship for my dissertation program. Not for me, she clarified quickly. For students who need it, who deserve the chance. Maxwell grinned. Already done. I called your department chair yesterday. You what? I believe in your work, Emma. In the voices you're trying to amplify. He reached for her hand. So, dinner? Emma felt the final brick in her wall topple. Yes, but not at some ridiculous 5-star restaurant where they serve foam instead of food. Your choice. Anywhere. The diner across from my apartment. Best pancakes in the city. Maxwell's smile widened. Pancakes for dinner? Scandalous. Get used to it, billionaire boy. Emma teased, finally allowing herself to smile back. My story comes with midnight breakfast and dog-eared paperbacks. Sounds perfect, Maxwell said. And as he leaned in to kiss her, Emma realized that sometimes the best stories are the ones you never see coming. 6 months later, Foxglove Books had expanded to include a rare books foundation that preserved and shared literary treasures with schools across the city. Maxwell's office now included a worn leather chair where he actually read the books he collected. Emma's dissertation received full funding, and she split her time between teaching literature and managing the bookshop she loved. Harrison Blackwood grudgingly admitted that Maxwell's new approach to business, ethical, sustainable, community-minded, was actually increasing their profits while rebuilding their reputation. As for Maxwell and Emma, they were taking their story one page at a time, discovering that the best plot twists are the ones that challenge you to become more than you were, that push you to write a better story than you imagined possible. Claire smiled knowingly whenever she caught them lost in conversation among the bookshelves, debating literature or planning their upcoming trip to Paris to visit those bookshops along the Seine. "I told you men like that don't change their stories," Claire remarked to Emma one day. "You were right," Emma agreed, watching as Maxwell helped a young boy find adventure books across the shop. "He didn't change his story." "No?" Emma smiled. "He found a better one to tell."